Welcome back to Morning at 10 TV. Many thanks for still staying with us. We are live on air and on social media as well. And like I did mention earlier on before we took that short commercial break, that we'll be back with conversations with regards to the border row between Uganda and Rwanda, and of course getting into what the people have to say. So of course, borrowing from that, the police in Ruchiga district are investigating a case in which two Ugandan businessmen were allegedly shot and killed in Rwanda, about 1 kilometer away from the Mpororo border post in Kamwezi sub-county Saturday night. The Kigezi Regional Police spokesperson, Mr. Eli Mate, confirmed the incident, saying that they were still compiling information about this incident. Now, stories like this have become a daily thing of the border districts. Life has changed for the people whose life was cross-border trade with Rwanda. Those with relatives can't even visit them. So today we have the Kisoro district chairperson, Mr. Abel Bizimana, to tell us about life at the border district. Many thanks, sir, for joining us, and welcome to Morning at 10 TV.
Thank you very much.
Good morning.
Good morning, brother. Yes. Good morning, sister.
Good morning.
My name is Abel Bizimana. I'm the district chairperson, Kisoro. Besides that, I'm a public health specialist. And this morning, I want to tell you that we are in a Great Lakes Albertine cradle, which has never failed to have conflict from time immemorial. In 1959, there was a crisis in Rwanda where the Tutsi Hutu issues of crisis came, and the Tutsis fled, and they passed through Kisoro. In 1991, when the Tutsis dominated the Rwandan, Ugandan people wanted to go back home, they passed through Kisoro. And the spills over of M23 and the Congo crisis, they had to have issues around there. And you cannot run away from neighborhood. In your neighbor, you always have, your child has stolen my soup. So those conflicts come, and especially when you are in a rich community. But again, we are also aware that in World War I, in Kisoro, again, around Morora, that's where the war was settled between the German, British, and Belgian at Morora Hill. Even the trenches are still there where they fought, but later they settled at a place called Kigezi, which now the name Kigezi originated from Kisoro. But on a better side also, Kisoro is a place where Winston Churchill stood around Kanava and said, yes, Uganda is part of Africa. Few people say that. You say Uganda part of Africa, but you don't know where that originated from. When that panoramic view smashed the face of the Premier of United Kingdom, he says, yes. So every one of you owes that name, part of Africa, on Kisoro. And we want such a places to have that cognition.
So, but Mr. Abel Bizimana, we are seeing the dynamics changing. On Saturday, two Ugandan businessmen were killed right there. So things are changing. In Katuna, the situation is very dire. The chairman of the Katuna business community, Mr. Franco, right there, he was telling us that many people are closing shop right there. So what is the situation in Kisoro? Are people running scared?
Actually, on top of what I've been hearing on this program before I came here, so many things happening, geopolitics. I want to tell the people, particularly our leaders who are in Great Lakes, CEPGL, in East African Community, in African Union, they are too quiet. And for us, the citizens, I'm not going to talk of diplomatic issues and security. That is not my area. I'm talking as a civilian general.
And let's focus on Kisoro and the people right there.
Yes, the civilian general of Kisoro is saying that people of Kisoro have lost much. And you know, for us in Kisoro and Rwanda, it's not about the border. For us, we had only one king. Kisoro was the place of worship where we had our priests. This is Nyabinchi and Nyamuchiga, Ruganzu and Yangombe. Kisoro and Rwanda are just inseparable in terms of people. But when it comes to the border problems, then my brother, who is on the other side, my uncle on the other side, cannot attend my party, cannot come to attend a burial. Leave alone business, the social fabric has been destroyed. So my duty here is to tell the leadership everywhere who is involved that a social fabric is being destroyed, and by the time we come back to ourselves, we shall never be the same. And another thing is people, when it came, this business closure, it hit us, all of us. Nobody was prepared for it. People had borrowed money, they had stocked enough and done this. So now the business community had to look for where to take their goods when they had not planned for it. Some people fled because their loans had to be serviced, yet the business was not taking place.
Right.
True.
You will find that majority who were the sufferers were the women and medium entrepreneurs who are doing just simple cross-border, not these big people.
Right.
Of course, big people are still trading. I'm
They
telling
are
you,
still
they are doing it.
Quite
The
interesting.
people from Mombasa are taking their goods. Incidentally, even our tourism industry, our gorillas are being seen because they fly to Kigali airport and come to Kisoro. By the way, Chanika is the biggest entry of tourism in Uganda, second to Entebbe. So you should mark that.
Right.
So when you are talking about this tourism, so tourism is going on uninterrupted. Business of traders going on uninterrupted by my ordinary people who are doing this
Right.
simple cross-border trade have been hardly
Mr.
hit.
Abel, I want us to look at the weight of this, especially now that you're saying that the big boys are still trading. Them that have been affected much are the small traders and, of course, the medium-scale traders. What alternatives are they going back to in terms of their survival? Because you know that these are breadwinners. This is people who are manning families, so to speak. So what's the situation on ground? Fine, trade has stopped. Of course, we did see in the story that they're saying businesses are closing. So what are they falling back on, so to speak?
The fallback would be Democratic Republic of Congo, because actually majority of business people who use most of our buses come from Goma, but they still come, but they cannot go back with the goods from Uganda, definitely. So our people have resorted to selling to themselves at whatever cost, whatever losses they can. But the good thing is that we also have a good market in Kisoro, Kabare. Kigezi is a population of high density, so we still have to trade around ourselves. But the losses about how we used to connect with Rwanda and the rest of East Africa, of the side of Burundi, Goma, of course, has been affected. And my plea as a civilian general, as I've told you, is to tell the powers that let us not pretend that there's nothing wrong. Of course, there are so many things that for us as civilians don't know, even we shouldn't even know, because it's not a big deal to ourselves. Me, I'm like a clan leader, I'm like a leader who is saying, hey, the big people should sit down. What is the use of East African community, by the way?
Right.
And what is the use of African Union? So those are the things we want to say. Let them bring these friends of ours, our elders together, and life comes back. If there is any issue, I think we have, I trust my president, by the way. His Excellency Tom Museveni has peacified everywhere in this continent. I want to even congratulate him upon bringing his colleague Tshisekedi to Uganda, because I'm interested in the Goma-Bunagana highway, which was broke because we are on Mombasa-Goma highway, and that one also is important. So I congratulate my president that he's doing very well in the great rakes and pacifying the place. And just, we don't know, there is a switch, we don't know where it lies, where we can put.
Well, of course, Mr. Bizimana Bell, someone does share your sentiments, and that is the mayor of Katuna Town Council, that is Mr. Nelson Nyangabashaija. He says that, well, the onus is on these two leaders to sit and resolve this issue, and he says they do not know when the border post will be open again right there in Katuna. So, and in Katuna they've been losing 56 billion monthly. That's what they were making in a month, so that reduced to 10 billion shillings. So what is the situation like in Kisoro? Were you hit worse than that, or are you moving on fine?
Let me tell you, this is just open truth, that losses to Kisoro are even much worse than losses in Katuna, in Mirama, because I've told you that
despite the fact that the tourism industry is still thriving.
The tourism industry is thriving. Incidentally, even a Hirwa group from Rwanda is now in Kisoro of 21 members, and we are perhaps benefiting from their coming to Uganda, but that is not very important. My coming here is not about money. It's not about economics. It's about how people are losing their social fabrics. My mother is born from Rwanda. We are like, the border is just a useless imaginary. For us, Rwanda and Uganda is completely the same. You think about anything about Rwanda and Kisoro. Kisoro was an extension of Rwanda Urundi until 1910, when it was really carved out with Greater Kigezi. So my coming here is not about business. We cannot count the losses of business because it is enormous. We have people who had even shops in Kigali who were doing, making sure that their goods leave Kisoro, well knowing that in a few minutes they will be in Kigali, they will be sold at this point, and then back to. And we had more than, in Kisoro, could fly about 50 buses per day.
Right.
But now the buses have reduced. And when a business like that stops, at the bus park, there is a restaurant which should be selling tea. Nearby, there is someone who's brushing shoes. Right. Around that place, there is a hotel. Someone has to sleep around. Even there is a girlfriend in the neighborhood. So, I mean, all of those have been cut off.
Let me ask you, Mr. Abel, you know, I was in Kisoro for an entire week last week. I was there conducting training, and indeed, I agree, tourism has not been affected. So let me ask you this. Is it a possibility for them that have been affected in terms of closure of their businesses to be assimilated in the different value chain prospects in tourism? How possible is that? In the interim, as we wait for things to pretty much settle down and them to be able to reclaim their businesses?
My take is that tourists are seeing a different picture because they are not being touched. Nobody from Kigali to Kisoro, nobody can touch a vehicle, ask, garage, everything passes through. So to foreigners, it is so smooth. But again, there are those small things that happen in the value chain of tourism. And you know, there is also another kind of propaganda around which place to stay in Uganda and Kisoro particularly, and Kigali, how to. So there is also propaganda in tourism. So that some tourists will make sure they come very quickly, go back, when actually they should have stayed longer. So all of those, until our leaders sit together. But again, you are asking, how can they sit together? Me, I'm not blaming my president and the president of the Republic of Rwanda. I'm blaming their peers. When two people have conflict, it is not themselves to sort it out, because everyone has reasons to say no, no. So it's up to the peers and neighbors say, let's sit. That is a tradition, African tradition, that when people disagree, their colleagues come in. So I don't know what they are fearing. And incidentally, we have East African Community, we have SADC, we have CPG, we have whatever. You know those bodies.
Yes.
What are they fearing to speak about my president and the other one, to bring them to the table? And even if there are security things which I don't want to talk about, be settled, because this is not our first time to have issues with the countries. You know, Kisangani had issues, we had issues around, but even we had time of friendliness when me myself, we helped the Rwandans who are going back home. We carried the guns, we carried the boxes of bullets. When I was a school child, going child in 1990s, so there was that cordial relationship, and I don't think we are really out of. We are not yet at the age where we are about to explode and never to meet again in Rwanda.
So there's still hope.
There is a big, big hope that one day our presidents can share coffee and then we proceed. My duty is to tell them Bafumira and the Banyarwanda are suffering because of these matters.
Okay, Mr. Bizimana, let's focus on the blame game that ensued ever since the closure happened. You have people saying that the blame is on the people, on the traders themselves, because the authorities are saying that the people were warned to avoid the border crossings ever since it was closed. So do you think the onus is on the security operatives or the traders themselves? Because when these two businessmen were shot on Saturday, we had operatives come out to say, well, much as they sympathize with the families of the victims, they actually blamed the victims themselves for having gone out of their way to cross the border despite being told not to do so.
My take on that is I'm not a trader and I don't encourage smuggling, but in Kisoro, people will cross the border for many reasons other than even business. Even we have there is a shrine in Kigali in Rwanda called Kibeho. Bafumbira flock there. They are not touched. They cross. They go and worship their Catholic faith and Kibeho who go there. We have relatives who come for other prayers and other things. They smuggle themselves. And I tell you, socially, people can even... I had an aunt. I have an aunt in Rwanda, in Nuhenjeri. Former Rangeri, now it's called Musanze. My uncle had a party. She reached the border and she told the border people, you rather kill me, but I will attend the party of my niece. Imagine that kind of zeal. She has to lose everything, but she has to attend the wedding party of her niece, who was in Nyarusi.
Ms. Abel, despite whatever is happening, do you think authorities have done enough to warn their citizens about the possible dangers of crossing these border crossings?
Yes, we have done enough, actually, in Kisoro. Very few situations have happened, but of course also some incidences took place. The good thing is that some of you will not cover in Kisoro so much, but I think I invite you to come and cover Kisoro more than you do. But indeed, there is a problem. People are desperately crossing to come and look for jobs, petty jobs in Kisoro. They are desperate to crossing to visit. Others are coming for night prayers. They face some of the headquarters are in Kisoro. So crossing is not about business only. They are crossing for many reasons and desperately crossing. So
desperation.
Desperation. And I encourage my president that if you don't want to see more dead bodies, if you don't want to see more things happening and history judging us harsh, that we just procrastinate.
Wait, Mr. Bizimana, that is a very, very contentious issue. So you're saying, despite the fact that people are being dropped on the border because of desperation, they will continue to cross?
Nobody will stop people to cross. I have a proverb in our Rufumbira saying, you cannot create a barrier between human beings and human beings. Remember the Berlin Conference, the Berlin Wall between the West and Eastern Germany. You remember, you know how people are struggling to cross the Mauritanian area to Spain through the Mediterranean. You see how it is happening in Mexico, between America and Mexico. You can never stop people from crossing.
Don't you think this is, Ms. Abel, don't you think this is some kind of failure on your part as the leadership in Kisoro? If you fail to stop people from crossing into Rwanda where they're going to meet their deaths, don't you think this is a failure on your administration?
I was coming here this morning. It was raining heavily and I had no car. I had to make sure I was here, desperately. Like it is like that, so many people also may want to desperately reach their destinations, including, we lost a person in Congo, not even only in Rwanda, Congo, a truck driver was driving to Goma through Nagana. They fell in a bush. We buried the gentleman in Mulamba. So it's not about Rwanda only, even in Congo and elsewhere. Security issues abound, but this one is too much, where leaders are saying, don't step in my compound. Right.
Let me ask you a question. You know, over the years, and it's not just an African phenomenon, whenever there's friction, there's an uprising of the young people to pretty much make their voices heard. Do you foresee such a future whereby we go back to what we saw in the 90s with the history of Kisoro? And if there's that possibility, what are you doing as a leader to make sure that that is averted? Because we know if that happens, there's a lot that is at stake. We critically know that tourism is an amazing thing that is still happening for Kisoro people. Windy, gorilla trekking and all these activities, I mean, that's a beautiful place. So what are we doing, especially you now that you're here, what are you doing to avert that possibility? Because you know it is a possibility and we cannot afford to lose out on the things that are already doing well and going well for us.
You said Kisoro is beautiful, and
yes,
even our president says it's beautiful because if you go to State House now, on the main entrance of the hall, you will see a very big picture of Kisoro panoramic view of the mountains. That set aside, the young people uprising about these issues depend on their interests. We have domestic issues of unemployment, people power, other things. They have taken over those, and there are people who are not trading, so their interests are not in the borders, because the interest across the border for young people, I think they are not so big. But if there were any, like we have had challenges, if the NRI uprising could happen, that could be on the side of Rwanda, because it is Rwanda which stopped all the students from primary to university to come to Uganda. It is the Rwanda that stops nationals who really, by the way, if gorillas can come to Uganda, that means Uganda is the safest place in Africa. So everything, everybody, not even Rwanda alone, Congo, Zaire, Sudan, everyone wants to come to Uganda. So, and any uprising that would really make sense would be in those countries who feel missing Uganda. But for us in Uganda, of course, we are missing a lot. And our missing is social and macro up there. But on a daily basis, life, we have food, we still have some life, because we have a government here. We can go to Kampala, we can go to Goma, we can go elsewhere. So we have some safety nets where to do some round of business for our young people and the women. But for others, I don't see young people uprising.
So, Mr. Bizimana, aware
I
don't think no indicators to say young people are going to complain about that.
So, Mr. Bizimana, away from the uprisings, let's take a look at the voter in Kisoro. Let's focus on the voter in Kisoro, who is actually dismayed by what is happening in that area ever since the closure in 2018. That voter right now is thinking, Mr. Abel Bizimana has failed me. Am I right? Because of what is happening in that area. People will always revert to the leadership. Whatever problem is happening, you might, wishful thinking, you might think, okay, maybe the problem is Rwanda and this and that. But the voter in your area right now is saying, Mr. Abel Bizimana has failed me. For the last couple of months, I've not been able to trade or do this and that. You said there are alternatives like going to Kampala and Goma. But what about that poor voter that doesn't have the money to trek to Goma or come to Kampala, but they are still stuck in Kisoro? Do you think come election, this will hurt your chances of being re-elected?
I'm telling you, the truth is that Mfumbira, every Monday and every Thursday, could see more than 5,000 Banyarwanda coming to buy merchandise on market days, Monday and Thursday. Those people are not happy. But again, as a politician, I can't be guilty for what I didn't create. And during our sensitization meetings of not risking their lives to the border and what, we tell them. And even our government is clear that you local leaders leave these matters of geopolitics of Rwanda and Uganda to us. Our president has been clear that we don't want these things to be in the media. And thank God, the media fraternity has increased. We have WhatsApp, even other things that keep people real time what's going on. So we are not going to lose our votes because people know where the problem is. It's not from Bizimana.
So
and his
what
council.
alternatives are you providing your people? Because you know that if their livelihoods, it's a reality now, their livelihoods have been affected. And there could be a ripple effect. We know that when people stay in spaces where they cannot earn money, they cannot put food on their table, that's a perfect recipe for social injustices and crime. So as a leader, does that concern you? And what plans do you have to make sure that that is sorted out?
When you cannot push a stone, you just pass around it. The truth is we are in a bad season. And we are not in worse season because we know we have to compare. You know, life is about comparison. We are not like in Syria, where 6 million have fled to Turkey. We are not like in South Sudan, where people are not sure what will happen to their government next day. So we compare and we say, oh, at least we are better. People are flocking and running. Kisoro actually is #1 entry of refugees in Uganda again. We at Nyakabande, it's where we clean all the refugees before they go elsewhere. So to me, I'm proud to say Kisoro, besides having those issues locally, still internationally we are the best. We are providing the best tourism options We are providing the refugee options.
But Mr. Abel, for that,
All
for
of those.
that young person,
Yes.
that young family that has been affected, they can no longer do trade or business with the Rwandan, of course, side. And of course, that's what they've been relying on years. Some of them are actually family businesses. What alternatives are you giving them? Because remember, at the end of the day, people have to survive. And if the legit route is not working for them, we know what happens. We know what happens. So what alternatives do you plan on providing for them to still be able to fend for their families?
Our young people are basically losing, the biggest young people losing are border guys who are ferrying people from the border to the border. And we have sat and agreed that this is a bad season. You know, we know seasons. There is always rainy season and warm season. Then there is also bad season for the business and good season. So we are patiently waiting. Sometimes doing nothing about it because we can't do anything about it. Patiently waiting when our presidents one day will say, open the curtains. But what else can I do?
You know,
What else can I
if
do?
you allow me,
Go ahead.
Romeo, you
Go
know,
ahead. Yeah.
I looked through
What
and
do you
I was
expect me
critically,
to do?
I was critically, yes, and I'm just trying to see how you can find a solution because over the past 1 week I was critically looking at the tourism sector there. Critically I looked at Bwindi, the amazing facilities we do have in Kisoro. The growth for tourism, we have not yet, you know, pretty much managed to get to our potential. There's still a lot of potential for growth. So as a leader, don't you look at that being an option for you to maybe negotiate better for these young people to be assimilated in the different value chains in the tourism sector? Because tourism has not been affected. It's growing by the day in that particular region. There's still spaces for them to have, you know, pretty much to have a space to earn a living in that tourism sector. So as a leader, are you not looking at that as an option? Because these are people who have to survive at the end of the day, whether in a legal way or illegal way.
Now, what I encourage my government to do, and myself, about people in Kisoro, besides what is happening, one, we want Nyakabande airstrip to be upgraded so that the traffic that stops in Kigali, the air traffic, comes directed to Kisoro. Perhaps that one makes another bigger community of business in Kisoro. We need tourism roads tarmacked so that people who may not, who may have to travel, they travel quickly, and we shall have now bigger minibuses. Now instead of border only, we have many alternatives in terms of transport. We want at Chanika, we can do better by putting a welcome center of tourists, because when they reach Chanika, they don't have where to stay. There is no coffee shop, there is nothing. So the tourism entry, as I've said, it is the biggest area. I want it done.
So, Mr. Bizimana, I'm afraid we've run out of time. Now, maybe I'll just give you some 40 seconds to wrap up with maybe solutions that we could have to circumvent this problem. As you know, the financial year 2017, 2018, 2019 was hit very badly. Our value of exports fell down to 27% from 585 billion shillings to 426. And then the value of the Rwandan imports to Uganda fell from 160 billion shillings to 123 billion shillings. You can verifiably see that there is a big problem. Even the private sector foundation agrees. So how best can we circumvent this problem as a whole? Yes.
Kisoro is where gold meets silver. Golden monkey and silverback. My exit route in this area is that since tourism has not been affected, we can expand packages, improve so that young people can go into cultural tourism, ecotourism, and other forms of tourism. But Kisoro as a place needs space to be closed with Rwandan counterparts.
All right.
Thank you.
Many thanks, Mr. Bizimana Abel, the district chairperson of Kisoro, for coming through. We wish you all the best. Of course, we'll be keeping tabs with you to see what it is that you're able to implement to ensure that the people there have an alternative to earn a living. All right, at this point in time, we'd like to link to Mr. Stephen Bede. Stephen Bede, tell us where you are and what it is that you have in store for us. Good morning.
And Romeo, of course, plus the guest in the